Hello, welcome to Zima Redesign. Today we will upcycle quilt binding into this boho sling bag. I'll leave a link in the description on how to pattern and how to make this bag. I usually have quite a bit of quilt binding left over after making quilts, and I usually store it in this bin. I wrap it around cardboard just to keep it organized. And I'm going to choose my color scheme today, and I'm choosing purples, maroons, and pinks in a variety of quilt binding. I'm using cotton batting that's upcycled to make our pattern for our foundation piecing. And I'm going to decide if I want to lay my strips horizontally, I'll start at the bottom, or if I want to lay it vertically, I'll start in the center, or if I'm going to do it diagonally. I think today I will do it diagonally, and I'll just lay it in one corner and just lay it down. You can also crease this if you want, just to kind of make sure that it's even. Make sure that when you lay it down that you have some overhang on both ends with the binding there. Your first strip, you're going to lay it down right sides up. And since I'm using quilting batting, it kind of holds the fabric down. The second piece of binding, I'm going to lay it right sides down. So right sides are facing. I'll pin it in place. And when I go to the sewing machine, I'm going to sew this 1/4 inch, and I'm going to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and back stitch at the end. So I've already sewn mine down, taking out my pins there. And you see I've back stitched at the beginning and the end. And I'll fold this over, and I'm going to press. I'll press in between each of the strips that I'm going to sew. You see I have quite a bit of overhang there, and I'm just going to trim that off, not completely with the foundation pattern piece there. I'll just put it to the side. You see I have a pile of binding there waiting to be sewn. I'll get my pressing surface here, and with my mini iron I'm just going to press that strip that I've just sewn. And each of the strips that I sew, I'm going to press toward that strip, and that's just to make sure that I don't have any puckers when I sew my next piece on. Make sure I don't have any pleats or anything. And it'll adhere to that batting that I'm using, but just make sure that you press it open. I'll grab my next strip here, and I just try to alternate the strip colors just to add variety, making sure not to put the same color next to one another, but just arbitrarily just grab. Just make it as spontaneous as you can be. And I'm going to pin it in place, and remembering that right sides are facing. And I have overhang on both ends of that foundation pattern piece there. I'll trim that in before heading over to the sewing machine. Putting it back into my pile, making sure to sew a back stitch at the beginning and the end, and sewing 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then after I sew it, I'll flip it again, and then I'll press it toward the sewn strip. As you can see, I'm just going to continue doing that until the entire foundation piece is all done. And even when I get to my handles, I'll make sure that my handles are sewn on at a diagonal as well. Just pressing in between each strip just to prevent the wrinkles and the puckers. Just searching for another color to make sure that I don't have the same color next to each other. And again, right sides are facing. Many of these fabrics you can't tell which the back or the front. So you can, if you're using batiks, it's the same thing. So just lay it down any way that you like. Sew 1/4 inch, back stitch beginning and the end, press the seams open. So now for this pattern piece, for this boho sling bag, there's 2 pieces, front and the back, and I've completely covered it. You see the diagonal on the handles. So I turn it over, and this is the foundation batting piece here. That's the pattern that's cut accurately. So I'm going to trim all the way around that foundation piecing for that bag pattern. And at this point you can follow the instructions and just sew the bag together, or whatever project you're making. But I'm going to add some ribbon, I'm going to add some lace, and I'm going to add decorative stitching in a variety of thread colors, and I'm just going to make sure that my thread color is in the same color scheme that I'm using, and I'll do that on both of the pattern pieces. You see I couched some threads on there. I used a free motion couching foot to couch those yarns, and I just used all of the decorative stitches that I had on my machine. I'm sewing on a Bernina 880 plus, but all machines have decorative stitches, so just use all of the decorative stitches that you have. You see some of those larger hand stitches, that's just embroidery floss that I also used and I hand stitched on just to fill in some of the open spaces. Once I put the bag together, this is the boho sling bag pattern, and I have a magnetic snap, and it's completely lined. You see the largest stitches, hand stitching there with the embroidery floss, and the couching of the yarns and all of the decorative threads. I think it just really adds to the charm of the boho style, especially when you put in the laces and the ribbon. And this is the back side. I didn't put lace on the back side. I just didn't want that bulk as the bag hangs on the back, on your body. But it is totally reversible if you wanted to use the back or the front. And I really like this style. I think I'll do several bags in this style in a variety of colors. And this is the boho sling bag. I hope you like it. Thanks for watching.